with Infinity Investment Strategies. And today on our Member of the Month for August of 2024, we have Tyler Bynum with us. I'm super excited. I've known Tyler for years and years. He's been a client for years and years, so I've really enjoyed getting to know him. But today we're going to dive deeper into his business and really get a look behind the curtain about what he has to offer for his clients. So Tyler, I'm so glad to have you here. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we'll just kind of jump into give us maybe a short little Reader's Digest version of you and your background, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into some specifics.
Yeah. Start backwards. I guess I've been on the multifamily brokerage side for 5 years now, pretty much right at 5. Before that, spent about 6 years in commercial real estate as well, but different sectors. Worked on the property accounting side at CBRE. I was on the retail team. Stream was on the industrial team, and then Lincoln Property went to multifamily. So that was the last job I had before I switched over to brokerage. And then before that, graduated from the University of Arkansas with marketing and accounting degrees.
Nice.
So
you've kind of got both ends there where you've got the numbers brain, but also the creativity. That's a unique blend.
Yeah, stuck with the numbers for about 6 years. It was good to learn. Definitely not my personality. Helps in the brokerage world a lot. A lot of brokers out there are sales guys, but being able to know the numbers and not have to pass it over to an analyst all the time definitely helps quite a bit. But yeah, that was a good entry point. But sitting behind the desk all day doing numbers and not being out at the properties doing deals is way better. So
oh my gosh, yeah. I can't imagine having to sit there. It's like you said, it takes a special personality to sit there and just crunch those numbers all day. We need those people, but doesn't mean it has to be you. So good stuff.
Yep.
So I guess on your personal side, anything, you're in DFW now. So you're based out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas, but you went to University of Arkansas. Where are you originally from? How did you get from where you are to where you are now? Where you were to where you are now?
Yeah, originally from Oklahoma. Played ice hockey growing up, and it's a
Ice hockey in
pretty expensive
Oklahoma.
sport yeah, interesting. So I moved around quite a bit. Ended up playing out of Kansas City and Tampa for a little bit, but in other cities, traveling around a lot of Dallas, which kind of got me in the world. It's not the cheapest sport my parents had to foot the bill for, so kind of gets you in the world of higher net worth people, right? And a lot of my friends, a lot of the players on my teams and their parents were living down here in Dallas and working in the commercial real estate world. And I'd come to their houses and be like, "Oh, what do you guys do for work?" And that's kind of where it started. So
I didn't know
probably
that.
wouldn't
That's
have,
cool.
yeah, probably wouldn't have the job I have today if it wasn't for hockey. I think a couple parents got my foot in the door with some of the firms down here, and it's kind of where it started.
So even from an early age, you saw the value of networking, is what I'm hearing from that.
Yeah, basically. I had a mentor that's renowned in real estate here in Dallas, and she sent me a list of like 40 or 50 people, and sent me emails and phone numbers. Basically said, start dialing, start emailing, and setting up your own meetings. So I basically just did that, and it was a step into brokerage at that stage, kind of cold calling a list and trying to set meetings. And I think out of the 40, I think I ended up setting like 20 something meetings and
Hey,
just
that's
knocked them all
good.
out in 1 week. Yeah. Came down here 1 week and then decided I was going to move here. So that's
All thanks to
that's
hockey. Who'd have thunk it?
Yep.
So you got to put your kids in expensive sports whenever you have them.
We'll see. We'll see. I definitely want them to play, but after knowing how
Yeah.
much my parents spent, we'll see.
Well, I'll tell you, if you have a girl, I guess the substitute for hockey might be volleyball, because both of mine play volleyball,
Yeah.
and that one is
Yeah. Any of those travel sports get
yeah,
super pricey
at least
and time
hockey
consuming.
and time consuming. Yes, we're starting school volleyball this fall, and then we've got club in the spring, and then you've got all your clinics over the summer, and there's really no downtime. But at least they're both inside. Like I know hockey can be kind of cold, but I do like that, I know people play softball, which is fine, but it's outside for a long
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, no, that's awesome though. I like that it, like you said, good you had a good understanding and a good experience with networking and the value that that offers, even from a super young age. So kudos to you on that. So what are you focusing on now? Obviously, commercial real estate on the brokerage side. What are you focusing on right now? And who can you help or provide the most value to in the market?
Right now, it's a lot of sellers. Right. We're a boutique firm. We're on the multifamily side, right, all over Texas. So anything, I think the smallest deal I've done is like a little 22 unit, and the largest I did was close to a 920 unit portfolio. So we
Nice.
do all kind of ranges. Um, in the past, the market was really hot. Like I said, I've only been doing this for 5 years, so I got a good 2 years of a hot market. Um, Trying to come in as a new broker and weasel my way into deals with some powerhouses out there in the Dallas market. So that was tough. A lot of brokers say that I got in at a good time, and a lot of young guys, but I'm like, I'd argue now's a good time to get in, right? You can get yourself in a lot of conversations. Back then, deals are moving so fast that it was hard to pick someone off that the relationships were already formed. So um, we did that, and it was a lot of consulting with buyers at that time, right? There were so many buyers from California and New York buying their first deal in Texas, and it was a lot of buyer handholding and trying to get them their first deal and breaking them into markets and all that. But I'd say lately it's been more on the seller side, right? It's hasn't been a good market. Sellers are in a pickle trying to figure out the best decisions. Sometimes selling the property is not the best decision.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a refinance or a recapitalization. So we've been doing a lot of that work. Obviously we're in the business of selling properties, but at the end of the day, it's a long-term game. And if I can help someone refinance and work with a lender that I know and maybe get a little referral fee or something, great. But that would maybe help save that seller to where when they're ready to sell in a year or two from now, they'll think of me first. So it's a lot of guiding sellers right now is what it is.
Yeah, but like you said,
Um,
it's interesting that you can build that relationship. So even if it's not a full blown like selling transaction, like you said, that refinance, there's so many things that in the broker world you have those connections that coming to you saying, hey, I need to, like you said, restructure, recapitalize, whatever it might mean. Have the conversation
yeah,
with the broker, talk to somebody who's knowledgeable, see what your options are, and that way you can make an educated decision on which way to go. And then
yeah,
I think the other thing is, like you said, multifamily, especially in Texas, Dallas, Fort Worth, relationships has always been what's communicated. And obviously we talk about it, but now that I've kind of seen that world for several years now, I see that is
mhm,
the number one thing that has allowed people to buy and or sell in the right place, in the right time, or even in a difficult time because they have those relationships. So like you said, now is the time to do it. If you don't have, 400 deals crossing your desk a month, you might as well do it while it's a little bit slower. So that's awesome.
yep,
That's good to know. I
yep,
didn't know that you guys could help on that refinance side. Obviously,
yeah.
you're not doing the refinancing, but at least making that
Yes,
connection.
yeah. I mean, it's at the end of the day, we're a broker, right? So it's our job's a network. I mean, that's literally what our job is, and to know who can do what at what time. So um, a lot of times we get calls, and like I said, sell's not the best play, but maybe we know a certain lender that's aggressive right now or at certain different product types and can help delay the process a little bit for that seller,
Yeah.
buy some time.
Well, on the investment side, so kind of going into that a little bit more, I know you guys and your firm are a little bit not different, but like you said, you do it all over Texas. You're not only in
Mm.
the DFW market. So can you kind of speak to your focus, what you specifically look for, what you are most suited to help people with? I know right now you're focusing on a lot of sellers and seller handholding, but I guess anything in particular in the marketplace that you really feel strongly like, hey, if you want somebody, I'm your go-to guy in this area.
Yeah, as a world I kind of fell into market wise, we I say we go all over Texas, but it's mainly DFW and Houston. I've yet to do a deal in San Antonio and Austin markets, but it's not that we can't or we haven't tried in the past, but it's just as of right now, most of our pipeline is Dallas and Houston. But property wise, um, I'd say something that I kind of fell into over the last 2 years would be new construction projects.
Okay.
Um, Selling them from the developer during lease up or once they stabilize it. So we've been working with a lot of developers, probably about 5 to 6 months before their certificate of occupancy. And we start helping that developer prep the property for sale. Um, you know, Consult on their rental, guiding them to what rents they need to get the right price that they want to get, whether they should offer concessions, how much concessions they should offer. So we spend about 5 to 6 months consulting the developer, and then once we get that CO, we start working on kind of slowly going to market. And in this market, a lot of people want to buy it fully stabilized with an agency
Hmm.
loan. So we'll work with that developer and track the lease up and make sure it's being absorbed properly, and um, go to market around 50% occupied and start hitting the ground running. So I'd say, and there's a lot of that right now. You know, Historically we've done value add deals. We still do value add deals. And when I first started, a lot of people were looking for 70s and 80s product to do the value add flip play. Um, I think a lot of people maybe got burnt on that, or it takes a really strong asset manager. It's not as passive of an investment as what people thought. And a lot of people are switching to more turnkey product. Maybe not as much capex that need to go into the deal, and want a little bit more just cash flow, a little bit more hands
Hmm.
off, and starting to go kind of at that 2000s and newer product is a pretty common denominator of what we hear buyers wanting. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of construction. You drive around Texas, there's cranes everywhere. Properties being built, a lot of deliverables coming to the market right now, and a lot of developers that are stuck in pretty nasty construction loans and things, and the absorption and the lease ups taking longer than what the developers have originally budgeted for.
Yeah.
And so some of them are their backs up against the wall with these construction loans, and so they're needing out. Um, and I think it's a really good play right now that a lot of people overlook. Um, just because, you're buying something new that's in lease up. So a lot of buyers might argue, hey, there's not much value add there. We can't bump the rents that much, but you're going in at a good cash on cash return, and there's less maintenance expenses, or way cheaper on lease up projects, but on the maintenance side of things. And it can help that NOI out a little bit. You're running a deal at 40 to 45% expense ratio instead of 55 to 60. So it helps. There's some pluses there, but the argument we get a lot on the buy side is they're so used to value add plays and dumping capex in and wanting the $200-$300 bumps. And so we have to consult on why that's not always the right play, and a new construction project might be better fit for them, even though they might not realize it. So
Yeah,
we're
I
seeing a
know.
lot of that lately.
Well, that's good though. And I have a question on that. I want to come back to in a minute, but I know a couple of years ago, 2020, 21, and 22, I guess. Um, a lot of people that I saw started going to maybe not necessarily brand new development, but newer, less than 5 years old, maybe not value add. They were maybe class A properties, because what we were starting to see was that the prices of value add were starting to creep up so much that it's, oh, well, if I want to buy something that I have to fix up versus something that's turnkey, I might as well buy something turnkey. So just the price
Mhm.
point per unit of the two different classes, we started to see there be less and less of a spread. And,
Yep.
that can make sense too. But I also like what you said, that if you're going in to buy something new, you're going to have maybe not less, but a different asset management style, more
Mhm.
opportunity for cash flow, less expenses. You may not be getting that $200 to $300 a month rent bump, but to be honest with you, I don't think everybody's getting the rent bumps. I'm in, several multifamily deals, and I don't know of any of them that have gotten the rent bumps that they originally projected. So are
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, are you really going to get that rent bump? And if you do, at what time period? Because putting in that CapEx and going in and returning and remodeling and doing all of that, what period of time is that going to take? And what's the time value of money on that cash flow versus just getting that turnkey cash flow from a already completed brand new property as well? So it's just, there's the projection, there's the reality, and we just have to figure out what's the difference there.
Yeah, and I think it's starting to turn. We're starting to get, like you said, I think throughout 2020, 2021. So big component to that was COVID,
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
which, affected the working class a little bit more than the white collar workers because everyone ended up, a lot of the people that were working, living in Class A deals still had jobs where they could work remotely, right? So they were still paying the bills, and
Yeah.
delinquency rates weren't as affected on Class A deals then. And there's the restaurant workers and the working class got hurt. So those, C class deals, you started seeing delinquencies go way up. And I think that's what started pushing people to the newer product at that
Mm.
time. But I'd say in the last couple months, we have a 60s deal right now. Um, C class deal that's starting to get a lot of attention. We actually have a signed LOI on it now. We're starting to see a lot of people come back into the value add space
Hmm.
recently. I think that's, we're almost there, right? Everyone's projecting rent growth to start coming in 2026. So I think both properties are starting to be beneficial. I think that rent growth in 2026 could help, both Class A and the C deal. So that those $200, $300 CapEx plays might come back here shortly. Um,
I hope so.
and I have friends over at Sign Construction and stuff. Their workload's starting to pick up quite a bit on the CapEx, so it's starting to pick up again.
That's good. So my other question on the development side. So I know you mentioned some of these developers got into some pretty gnarly debt as far as builders loans. Have you ever done, or would it make sense to look at a deal that you have a developer who's not even close to the certificate of occupancy, but buying that and selling that off to another developer that's going to finish it out? Have you ever done anything like that, or does that even come across very often?
We've yet to transact one of those, but we've gotten a lot of calls, I'd say, in the last six
Okay.
months of that.
Oh, recently.
Projects that are, yeah, projects that are maybe 70 to 90% complete, and developers basically out of cash and can't get it to the CO point. We've seen at that point in time, we'll sit down with them and kind of help consult and try to figure out what the best play is for them. Some of them have taken hard money loans to get it across the finish line and get that cash to go ahead and get the CO. And some of them are playing around with, okay, do we go ahead and sell it to another developer that can come in and finish the project? Um, so far in our case, everyone's taken the extra cash. We've done two different we've helped find two different hard money plays to get them to that CO point. Um, I just don't think that what we've noticed is selling pre CO, you're going to have to take a pretty decent haircut on the deal.
Yeah.
So unless that developer has land and, is ready to move that money in a different location, that might be the play. But most of the time, it's going to try to figure out a way to find that cash, even if it is expensive hard money to get it completed.
Yeah, just finish
Um,
it out, get it to the point where you can get that CO, and then you can
yep,
sell for a more profitable. That makes sense. Okay.
yep, yep.
So is that what are you excited about right now? Is it like, if you're looking at, like you said, we've kind of been in this weird market for the last couple of years. Everybody's muscling through. The phrase is survive till 25. So I feel
Hmm.
like we're on the cusp of it. We're all starting to get excited. We're seeing, we were just talking earlier about the market changing, the market, we saw the stock market drop pretty significantly today. So across the board, there's a lot of shifting happening. What are you looking forward
Hmm.
to? What are you seeing on the horizon that is something that you're excited about?
I think a lot more, obviously there's been a ton of money on the sidelines. That's what everyone's been saying, right? That just haven't been able to transact. We've seen sellers come down a little bit, right? That pricing, like we were talking about, the pricing gap's a lot smaller. So that's something that's exciting me, obviously. I think there's still a little bit of a gap there, but it's starting to bridge. People are starting to, it's getting to the point where, maybe you're 10% off now, not 20, 25% off. And so we can get creative. Um, Sellers are starting to get, I'd say, more open-minded, right? We're starting to
Mm.
see a lot of carry back plays for short times, 6 months to a year carry back plays to get the property back up to performance and, agency ready, to start trying to move some of these transactions forward. I'm thinking Q4 will definitely be a good transaction quarter. But I do think that it's still going to be slower than historicals for the remaining of the year. I think next year, I think is when we're really going to see it start, transaction volume starting to pick up. But the talk is everyone's coming after it now. Product type, what I'm more excited about is, when I first started, there were so many syndication programs and so many guru programs out there preaching, you know, getting a syndication model, buy 100 units plus, 80s and newer, hire third-party property management, all that kind of talk. What we're starting to see is, I guess the right wording would be, instead of having large general partnership groups and these large syndications, we're starting to see people backtrack and bite more off with more than they were biting off too much.
Mhm.
Instead, so now we're starting to see a lot of people interested in that 40 to 80 unit product that maybe people weren't interested in 4 or 5 years ago because their guru told them not to buy it. But now we're starting to see a lot of buyers starting to be interested in the smaller deals. I think with, COVID and remote working, the struggle there has always been property management, right? They're too small to support on-site staff.
Yeah.
But with technology increasing, it's a lot easier to start, managing deals remotely. There's property management companies starting to get really, really good at that. And we're starting to see a lot of more traction of guys who I've sold, 300, 400 unit deals to in the past, saying, hey, we'll look at a 60 unit deal if it makes sense, right?
Nice.
We don't have to raise as much money. We don't have to have as many partners. Maybe we just buy it ourselves, with no one else involved. And so I think that's kind of what it's exciting me a lot. Could be saying that because that's, as a broker, that's a lot of my pipeline right now too. But I
I
see a
appreciate your
lot of,
candor there.
yeah, I see a lot of opportunity there, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made on the 40 to 60 unit deals that a lot of people overlooked in the past.
Heck yeah, man. And even there's so many that I know that have left their full-time W-2 jobs and they're doing real estate full-time. So many people originally years ago before the guru groups cut their teeth in that, even in the 20 space. Some of them did like duplexes or whatever,
Hmm.
but in that 20 to 30, 40 to 80, sub 100, I mean, why not, right? Like it's a good size, you're going to get good cash flow, your expenses are still going to be low. Now the property management, as long as I would say, and tell me if I'm wrong, if you have a 40 to 60 unit, but you're in a primary market like Fort Worth, Dallas, or any of the surrounding areas, your property management isn't going to be as bad as if it were in, San Angelo or something like that.
Yeah. That's kind of what we have a developer that we work with that develops in tertiary markets, and the management is the toughest piece there, but you just really have to know the market and who can get there at a phone call time frame,
Yeah.
on the management side. So that can be a struggle, but the people that can figure that out, self-manage, or find that relationship that maybe has a bigger property close by down the street, and start leveraging those management companies that are already in that market, and can pick off, maybe an assistant property manager or something to kind of help oversee the project. um, or yeah, and self-manage. People are starting to get their hands dirty again. I think people were taught that multifamily investing was a passive investment and then figured out it wasn't. So I think people are open to do the work again and grow. So I'm definitely excited for those. And then on the reverse side, the lending is it's gonna tighten up in certain ways, right? There's there's a lot of people, a lot, in the news, a lot of foreclosures that's happened. There's a lot
Yeah.
of KPs that have signed on agency debts that are flagged now that, I've talked to some of my agency lender buddies that, people aren't getting as proved as easy, right? And you have to have the right team in place and make sure. And sometimes going down into those smaller unit deals, um, could help open the door for qualifications on the KP side of things, and get a better loan. Because we've been told that there's people going down offers, and getting in best and finals and finding out that their KP they've always used isn't qualifying for the debt anymore.
Wow.
So
Do you have a recommendation to prevent that from happening? I mean, as we start to see more transactions and more things start to go through, any words of advice on how to mitigate that risk?
it'd be tough. I mean, that's just going to be really knowing your partners, I guess, and
Yeah.
knowing your team.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't. A lot of people are quiet on what deals they're in and in these days. Um, so I think you kind of got to know who's been flagged and who's not. And I think your mortgage broker will help you with that drastically. Um, Kind of help you able to guide that if you are looking for a KP on your team to sign on the debt.
Okay.
Um,
So talk to your lender
but
about it and see if you have a couple of
yep,
options to choose from, maybe run it by your lender and say, hey, I'm looking at these people. What works? What do you think will be best? Because like you said, they've got people
yeah,
they're flagged. Okay. I didn't even think about that, but that's
yep.
a really key piece, especially as we start to see more people doing more and more deals over the next, I don't know, 9 to 12 months or so.
There's a lot of properties in servicing right now, right? And there's a lot of a lot of people that aren't paying their bills. A lot of properties that aren't, and so those KPs on those deals are of course flagged with the agencies, and that was coming from a third party lender. A friend of mine tell me that that's been their struggle lately on refinancing and trying to get deals moved forward.
Nice. Well,
So
hmm. No, that's a good red flag to have out there and at least be on top of it, the best you can.
mhm,
So
yep.
I guess with who you're looking or what or who you're looking to learn more about now in the world of investing. I know we've talked about these smaller deals and focusing more on that, people
Mhm.
doing their own asset management, uh, property management. Is there anything in the world of investing that you're interested in or wanting to pursue more than you have, at least recently? Either people in
Um,
particular or projects.
just we talked about deals about to be completed, right? The new construction project that's coming online. But actually, starting at the land, right? Going ground
Okay.
up from the beginning it's a really good time to build right now. I know the construction debt markets are a little tight and it's tough to make the numbers work. But on a macroeconomic level, there aren't a lot of projects going vertical today, right? So the issue that we're having this summer with all these apartments finishing at the same time, we're probably not going to have that issue in 2026. There's less developers out there actually going vertical and making it happen. So I think the ones that do, 18 to 24 months from now, when those projects are completed, they're going to be looking pretty good. Um, there'll be few deals that are on their street and in their submarkets that are brand new, like, and everything will be 2 3 years old at that point. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good time to get involved in the construction side. um, it's something that have not done till now. So when you ask, what I'm learning every day on that type of stuff. So trying to work with land developers and engineers and trying to figure out what flood zones and zoning and all that type of stuff is something I've been focusing on trying to learn myself.
Yeah, I've got a really good group that I've gotten to know, national flood experts. So
Mm.
if you ever want to get connected with them on the develop, if you're going through a project, let me know. They do a ton in all over the southwestern area,
Yeah.
southeastern, excuse me. So anyway, on the ground up development, is there a size that makes sense for that you'd like to focus on, or does it really matter?
I don't think it really matters. Obviously, if you're getting involved, on a bigger deal, just make sure that the developer knows what they're doing and look at their track record on how many units they've built in the past, and make sure they know, what they're doing and all the cycles that they've gone through and all that type of stuff. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. We're working a little 56 unit development right now, and then we're also working a 320 unit development. So, and helping them out. So and I see the numbers make sense on both deals. So I'm not, I guess, favored towards one or the other.
That's awesome. I
But
didn't, so you guys are able
we're-
to not just do hey, you're close to the point of your certificate of occupancy. You can do it from the ground up, like, hey, let's make this thing happen.
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Been helping with construction lending and raising equity, finding equity partners for the developers, and obviously the end game for us is if we can help piece the development to go vertical, I would like to think that we'll be the broker on the back end when it is done and ready to sell. So
Yeah, if you're not, you need to go like punch him in the back of the head, because that would be kind of crap. Like, oh my gosh, if
yeah,
you do that, you better have a pretty good freaking
I'd hope so.
reason that I can't think of
I hope
one.
so. Yeah, most
Shame
most
on
of
you
them would,
all.
but yeah,
Yeah, no,
most
totally.
most of them would. But yeah, that's a product we've been diving in drastically over the last year. And that goes with BTR too, right? I've yet to come across the BTR completed yet, so building those same thing.
Most of those are on this, they're single family. You're buying that, and correct me if I'm wrong. I understand those build to rent are how I've seen it done. You're buying massive, not massive, but large plots of land, building smaller tract homes on that, and then renting them out. Or have you seen it where they're building multifamily and they're just going to carry that through all the way through into, operation as well?
Both. The more common one we've seen are some of the bigger players buying, 100 to 300 acres and doing their typical build to sell, product of homes, but maybe the front portion of it be BTR. So they're doing a blend of, a massive neighborhood like Light Farms in Salina, if anyone's familiar with that, like, and just kind of blending it between BTR and build to sell.
Okay.
Um, and then we've seen the reverse side of that where you put multifamily on the road frontage and BTR behind the multifamily. Um, so
So you can get
seen
creative with
both.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see. So what would you, if you were to, I know you said you've been in it for 5 years now. What would you tell if you're looking and you're talking to 5 year younger Tyler and you could give him a call? What would you tell yourself about investing based on what you know now?
Oh, a lot. A lot of it would have to be partnerships, right? Screening. I feel like I'd be better at screening people who you do business with,
Yeah.
right? When the market's hot and everyone's making money, everyone's your friend. But when market goes down, there's a lot of people out there that haven't done the right thing, I guess you could say, and
Yeah.
to weed out market, right? So there's a lot of people that I've worked with that I probably would not work with again. Um,
You want to
and
blast him
so
real
that would
quick?
be the
I'm just
big thing.
kidding.
Yeah. So, and it's wasted a lot of time, right? So that would be my biggest thing.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. So I'm in a unique position because I have gotten to build relationships with like you on the broker side, but also passives, LP and GP. Like I've really I'm blessed that I get to talk to so many different people and, have conversations and kind of not go deep, but at least get into the mechanics of like what you're doing, what you're looking for. Even if we're like sitting around after MFIN having some drinks at the happy hour or whatever, like we can just kind of sit there and rant to one another. All of that to say, I get to hear a little bit from both ends of the spectrum, what GPs and LPs are wanting from brokers and vice versa. So all of that to say, from the broker perspective, if you are a GP and you're coming in to buy or sell a deal and you're going to have that conversation, right now, obviously, I know it's easier to go slower and do a little bit more as a broker, but when it does start to get busy, what are some things, whether it's slower, but that busy, it doesn't matter, but what are some things that as a broker, you can say, hey, GPs, if you're doing X, Y, and Z, we're going to hold you in a higher regard. And this is a way to really help build and nurture that relationship, to be able to have that relationship at your, not at your disposal, but at least have that available when things do get busy. What advice would you give to these GPs?
My thing right now is it's the most simple one, and it's crazy how little people do it. But if I send someone a deal feedback, right,
Mm,
whether that property's a no, or right now you're getting a lot of, especially in the off market world, you'll have buyers that you'll send to, and they'll be like, hey, I'm at this price, and then nothing after that, right? So the feedback on why you're underwriting to that price, set up an underwriting call. Like you said, it is a little bit slower right now. Things are starting to pick up. So over the last year and a half, I've been able to talk to more first-time buyers and unsophisticated buyers to kind of go get meetings with them and walk them through and develop relationships. But to your point, when the market starts getting hot, I will have less time, because we're full commission, right? So our time's our money, and
that's right.
got to kind of fend for yourself a little bit. So those meetings will start to be declined more and more, right? And getting your foot in the door with those brokers. So I think, a lot of it's just feedback, right? The guys that I know that are quick, this market's going to heat up fast,
Yeah.
right? So if I can send financials on a deal and they can get me a pricing guidance, they don't even have to have a full LOI yet, but just at least I know where they stand in 24 to 48 hours. And then they
Wow.
tell me why they're there. Obviously those guys are going to be at the top of my head when deals come across my desk. So yeah, I'd say speed and explaining why you're at the price that you're at would be the biggest thing.
And like you said, it's so surprising that that doesn't happen more. But yeah, I mean, communication, sometimes it's hard to remember that this is a relation relationship business. This is people. And not only are you as the buyer people, but the sellers are people. And you've got to have that conversation and give them feedback. Because I know there's multiple buyers that, I'm sorry, multiple brokers that are dealing with sellers. And you're like, I know my seller is not in the right, but we
Mhm.
need to give them the feedback to be able to demonstrate to them why we need to adjust the price, or not, right? Maybe you are in the
Yeah.
right price point. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and
Getting feedback.
the more buyers that give us feedback
There you
to
go.
go to that seller, right? If it's one buyer that does it, that seller would be like, oh, that's just, a low ball offer. I'm just going to push that to the side. That guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But when you start producing more and more and more at that price range, you show them that the first guy wasn't that far off.
Yeah.
Um, and so you're seeing a lot of sellers circling back up to those buyers, and respecting that they were first, and submitting and things like that. So yeah, I'd say
Interesting.
speed and logical feedback, you know, um, would be the best to a reasonable standpoint. You can't just throw out why you're at a price and not explain where your investor database is coming from, the metrics that you need to hurt. If you're trying to hit cash on cash or IRR, or whatever those metrics are, just tell the broker what you're trying to hit, and we can underwrite the deals to those numbers.
Yeah. And so like you mentioned, you are still open right now, as it makes sense, within reason, able to do those underwriting calls where you can get on and say, hey, you're here, let's figure out and go through your underwriting to figure out like where the disconnect is and what wiggle room there might be that you may not be seeing initially.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say brokers are all hands on deck right now to get a deal done. So you're talking to the seller, having underwriting calls with them. You're talking to the buyer, the lenders, property management companies. You got to have, when that price gap's still there, right? You got to bridge the gap as much as you possibly can and have a conversation with everyone that's looking at the deal. Um, so to get a deal across the finish line is definitely taking more time on our, off our hands than it used to. You used to be able to throw a deal on the market and get multiple LOIs in 24 hours, and it
Yeah.
becomes a bidding war, right? So
Yeah.
now,
Your money goes hard day one, like six
yeah,
figure. That
yeah,
was nuts. Oh my gosh. Oh man. Well, I
yeah.
mean, there's benefits to it, but anyway, okay. So we'll transition out of the investment world. I want to, we started with, Tyler. We went into the business side. So let's kind of circle back and come back to the Tyler end of things. So what are some things that you really want to do more of, but you haven't really had time for recently? What's something that you like to dip your interest
Um,
into?
that's a good question. I'm a big hobby person, so I almost probably have too many hobbies, but that's a good question. I would say more so the personal investing side of myself,
Okay.
right? I'm so, brokers right now, the market's been slow. Deals haven't been transacting that as frequent base. So obviously goal number one is to get us there. But then, trying to figure out, like I said, the construction side or the BTR side, kind of start figuring out what I would like to do personally on the investment side. I think every broker at the end of the day would be lying if they didn't say this, but we're in the business to eventually own deals ourselves as well.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's something I'd maybe want to spend more time on is what deals could I go after myself or with a group of partners
As a
here
GP or
soon.
just from the LP
Yeah,
side?
as a probably as a GP to start. Just because on the GP side, a broker, like we said, we have a big network, right? So we can kind of help piece the team together. If
Yeah.
like what we, circling back, if that KP that they originally used wasn't a good fit, or maybe we have more debt connections and property management connections, whatever that is. But helping put the team together and then going after a deal myself would be something I'd want to focus on
Yeah.
a little bit more.
And you're going to
And then
have a
the other
little bit
thing
more
would be,
insight to the people too. The people that you've dealt with, you know who you wanted and not work with. So,
yeah, another thing that in the past, it's a big talk when we're going to networking events. The big baby boomer business kind of bust going on right now, right? A lot of baby boomers own a lot of small service businesses. A lot of them are very real estate oriented, and so I think service businesses keep cash flow going a little bit when transactions are down, and so I think it's an easy in as a broker to start that. Like I kind of have a little side drone videography business, or
that's
you
right.
could do anything, right? Like a pool cleaning company, or just any kind of service base that kind of goes hand in hand with real estate. Getting one of those up and going would be kind of a little side project I'd be interested in diving into more.
Are you doing your drone footage? Are you still actively doing that where you can provide that to people who are wanting to list their properties?
Yeah. To be candid with that, I used it in my advantage when I first became a broker. I've been flying drones for longer than I've been in commercial real estate, so I used that to get my foot in the door quite a bit. It was a really good way to get on site as a brand new broker during due diligence and meet the GP teams and meet the property managers and the contractors and be like, oh yeah, I'm also a broker. It was a good way to kind of get your foot in the door, kind of like a cold call,
Yeah.
but more valuable than a cold call. But that's also a transaction based service, right? People do videos when they're either selling a property or doing due diligence when they're raising money. So that side that has fell off quite a bit over the last year and a half with the transactions. But that's picking up as well. I used to not offer it, I guess, to other brokerages and agents, I guess you could say, because I wanted my videos and my marketing as a broker to be different.
Yeah.
But nowadays technology's grown so much that every broker has it now, right? And so it's like if they don't use me, they're just going to go hire someone else to do it. So
Yeah.
kind of
You might as
open the
well get
doors
your
to
cut
being
while you
more of a
can.
yeah. It's kind of opened the door to be more of a team player, right? The brokerage world's big but small at the same time. We all compete against each other, but we're also kind of all friends as well. So um, probably start filming some properties for other brokers as well. And then as transactions pick up, the due diligence side of it is when most people want it.
Yeah. So if you're a seller and you want some pretty bomb drone footage, you better call Tyler and he can
Yeah.
two bird, one stone. That way you don't have to outsource that. Why not,
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. So what over the last 5 years, I asked 5 years of everyone, but I think you're in a unique position because this is the specific field you've been in for 5 years now. what new, behaviors, habits, or beliefs have you developed or adopted that have most positively impacted your life? We might have picked up some negative ones, but I want to just focus on the good
Yeah.
ones.
Um, I was gonna say the biggest one I think is time blocking, right?
Ooh,
When
okay.
you come from accounting, you don't have to do that so much, right? It's more of the 9 to 5 job. But being a broker, you wake up, you think about deals all the way till you fall asleep. And I'm married and have a family, so you gotta have delegate some time across the board. To your hobbies, you got to keep sane everything, right? So it's time blocking would be the biggest thing. Just knowing when to shut things off and move on to the next task at hand would be the biggest thing I've probably learned over the last 5 years doing this.
That's
But
huge. Well, and
yeah,
it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of focus, but it's so powerful when you, and I'm not good at it by any stretch of the imagination. And it depends.
hmm
I'm better at it other times than not. But when I do it, I feel like when I give myself an hour to work on something, I'm so much more likely to get it done in that hour versus allowing
yeah,
myself to just drag it on and on and on. And then when I do take that break or enjoy a hobby, I'm going to come back rejuvenated and refreshed to getting down to business. So that's really good.
yeah. And I think that's a trial by error thing, right? I think previously I've time blocked too much too. I mean, that's I've read Trump's book actually that talks about that, right? Real estate guy, and he leaves a big chunk of his day open, right? Because if you time block too much, something can pop up in the next 30 minutes that I didn't know was in the pipeline yesterday,
Yeah.
right? So, and then maybe it's a very good opportunity that you need to hop on. So if you have your whole day just blocked off hour by hour, well, when are you going to drop, if a good deal pops on your desk in the next 20 minutes, you need to be able to kind of shift some things around and go after that opportunity. So I
Yeah. Just be,
think
oh,
that's what
sorry. It
I've
doesn't fit
learned.
into my time block. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So it's like there's a discipline there where you got to have enough open schedule on a day-to-day basis to allow for things to pop up. So that's a trial by error thing you got to kind of figure out.
that's been the hardest thing too, is because some people are like, oh, I do this from 5 to 7 and I do this and that. And I'm just like,
Hmm
like you said, figure it out, what works for you, try it and make adjustments. So no, I love that.
hmm
What books or podcasts do you most recommend? I'm a huge like book nerd. I don't
Yeah.
listen, I don't read, but I like to listen. So I'm going to take notes and share it.
Um, I'm trying to think lately, real estate wise, business wise, I got one sent to me from Corbin actually. Sent me the next 5 moves, or your next 5 moves, I guess, by
Okay.
Patrick Batman, I think was his name. But yeah, I just started that one. That one's pretty good. Non-business wise, the best book I've read all year is a book called Fearless. It's actually going to be a movie, I think, in 2 years, but it's a Navy SEAL story, but it's
Ooh,
super motivating and probably one of the best ones I've ever read.
have to put it on my, have to
But
put
that
it on my
was that
list.
was really good. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, good
Your
come
next
up
five.
story.
Okay. Your next 5 moves, fearless. Anything else?
Podcast wise, I bounce around. I don't know. I just always look at the guests. Big Joe Rogan fan if he's got a good one on, but
Yeah.
that's more just kind of a time killer. I drive to Houston a lot, so I'm
Ugh.
always listening to audiobooks and podcasts. Um, but real estate wise, there's a ton out there these days. So I haven't kind of honestly listened to one fully. I kind of just bounce around depending on who the guests are
I
lately,
know.
it
I'm the
seems
same
like.
way. Yeah, I get
And
that
the
for
real
sure.
estate world, to be honest, over the last year and a half has been very repetitive, I guess you could say. You go to the conferences. I've spoken at a bunch of conferences, and it just seems like, the last year and a half has been kind of stagnant. So it's just everyone's just re-saying the same things over and over again. So I'm hoping with this market shift recently and all the Fed talking about potentially cutting rates a little bit bigger than what they were originally expecting and the market dropping, think the next networking event and the next conference might be some different points brought up than 6 months ago. So
Yeah.
it's probably good
I'm
to start
well,
diving back in and listening again.
I'll tell you, I've been watching it, and just from a social media standpoint on, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of that, there's so much more. I don't want to say noise, because some of it is really good quality stuff. Like, I follow some
Mm,
really excellent people in the real estate world, but I'm seeing a lot more of what they're saying. Um, as far as future projections, kind of their interpretation of what's going on. The last couple of years, like you said, I've been seeing a lot of people talk about just kind of some tips and pointers. And, a couple of them I follow, they are very
mm,
candid about, like, hey, this is the deal that I did. This is what went wrong. And this is why. This is the lesson I took from it.
mhm.
So I appreciate that too. But all right, we'll wrap up. One final question. I was asking everybody, are you working on anything exciting now? Obviously, you've talked about the ground up development. Those are some really good things. But do you have any particular deals that you have that are available right now that you're like, man, this one could really be really be good for the right investor?
Yeah, we're working. It goes back to the beginning of the conversation. We have a new development that just finished about 3 months ago that's in lease up. 72 unit deal in Montgomery, Texas, um, which is kind of getting, in those secondary, tertiary markets, but it reminds me a lot of Salina, 10, 15 years ago,
Nice.
of the Houston kind of is the way I would compare it to a lot of people that live here in Dallas. But it's a great submarket of Houston. The income's good and it's growing. HEB just bought land there. Home Depot just opened there.
Oh,
So it's just a kind of a growing pocket of Houston that there isn't a lot of deals in. Um, and when we're selling that outside of the state, people they're like, where is that, what is that, that's too far outside the metroplex. But it's a deal that I'm extremely excited about, that I think is probably going to, I bet you we'll start getting some offers over the next month, and I think that one will be a closing here soon.
nice.
Because I think people are seeing that one.
Hmm. What would be the best way to communicate with you? Do you want people to reach out to you on LinkedIn? Do you want email, phone number? What works for you?
All works. Phone's obviously the best, right? Email's good to schedule something, I guess you could say. But phone conversations at the end of the day are always the best for brokers, to understand who the person is and their experience level, and um, can kind of go about what they're really trying to go after. Especially, being in a boutique firm, and we go after the whole state, right? So maybe what we have isn't a fit, but I can understand a little bit more what you're looking for, and something's going to pop up eventually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Being able to, get your feelers out there. So when over those, like you said, Q4 and beginning of Q1 2025, when we start to see more and more transactions coming up, you need to be on the short list for people to contact you. So good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll wrap up here. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing your insight. You always have a really good grasp on everything, considering the wide experience that you have. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks.